But I will pause for now and answer any questions that you have.
I was wondering how the idea of spending more time with others relates to introversion versus extroversion.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the reasons that Nick Epley talks about doing this work is that he doesn't like doing this stuff. Like he didn't feel socially connected, right? And so I think that even for folks who are like more on the introverted side, the act of finding these social connections will be better than you think. Because the power of these sort of social connections that we see in terms of health benefits and that sort of thing, those things can cross all these other personality variables. Another thing to think about with introversion and extroversion is kind of how you do that. Like you might be the kind of person that less seeks out the kind of weird stranger situations and more the sorts of like kind of acquaintancy social connections that you could get to know a little bit better, but that might not feel as scary. So talk to the dining hall workers who you might not talk to as much, but give an extra minute to ask them how their day was. Like pick social situations and kind of potential for social connections that like feel less like putting yourself out there, and those will kind of give you some bang for your buck too.
So I too have found that just in day-to-day life, like talking to randos always makes things interesting better. So like that. I'm curious if you think there's a delta between the time spent with like very close friends versus people that you don't know that well.
Yeah, and so this is what we'll get to a little bit next week, which is that for sure putting time into close relationships is important too. And in fact, that's one of the things we're going to see is that one of the main problems of miswanting is the fact that it's causing us to put time into things that don't actually matter, right? Like how many times in the last month have you prioritized like doing something that's related to one of those goals that I keep saying is bad, either like something you think is going to be useful for your job or for your grades or like all that stuff that we had up there versus like just enjoying this thing that like Marina Keegan was talking about, like this web of people and this fun stuff that those of you who are graduating this year aren't going to have in the same way. No, sorry, Nick. Aren't going to have in the same way after this. And so, so it is the case that these rich social connections feel more powerful, these continued ones like close friends and close acquaintances. And the way that you can maximize those is to find ways to put time into to kind of make sure that you experience them. And I think you can do that with those strategies we talked about last week, right? Like having gratitude about your friends is one great way to do it. Mess with reference points. Feel what it would be like to not be here for a little bit and then come back. And then those of you who are away last semester might have remembered this. Like you come back and you're like, oh, there's all these people here. This is great. The key about the stranger thing, though, is that oftentimes those situations of talking to strangers aren't cases that's going to take away from the social connection, right? Like if I choose to talk to somebody in a coffee shop line, that's not time I'm not spending with my family or my suite mates. That's just like free extra social connection that we're missing out on. And so that was kind of why I focused on that one. It's a much easier intervention that all of us can do really quickly.
I had a question about the acts of kindness. So you said talk to all these people, but implied in your examples is that people reciprocate, which obviously is not always true, right? You say hi to someone, they ignore you, right? Not the greatest feeling in the world. So what, is there like data on like how that affects you? Is that also helping you? Is that an act of kindness?
So in Nick Epley's original paper, he kind of looked at, because people have strong predictions about this. Like if I start talking to somebody on the bus, they're either going to not talk back or they're going to be mad at me. He actually did all these measures of productivity on the bus, like how much you, or a train in particular, how much work you get done and so on. Because you think, this is kind of what I think on the train is like, I could talk to that person, but like they probably, they're going to their job, like they probably have something to do, like, they don't want me to talk to them because I'm going to like make them less productive or something. What you find is that people mispredict this stuff. Like most of the time when you stop and say hi to people, like they're actually much nicer to you back than you think. And so this is another spot where we're just mispredicting. Like usually people are like happier about it than we kind of expect. So there's not as much work on like what happens when people reject you, but that's in part because it doesn't happen nearly at the same frequency as our mind leads us to believe. The act of seeking it out seems good. But you also raised another interesting question, which is this kind of the idea that these random acts of kindness are going to come back to us in kind. And this raises this question of like why all this kindness feels so good to us. One idea is that we really do have this expectation that like, if I give the $5 chai to someone in the Dunn and Norton study, that I'm going to get a $5 chai back to them. And that seems to happen to a certain extent. But what seems to be even more powerful is that when we do kind acts for people, particularly people in our social circle, what happens is those people believe the relationship to be stronger. Like those people believe us to be nicer people, and that's what has the effect. So it's not like we're often getting the money we spend back in kind. It's just like tightening the ties, and the ties alone are the kind of thing that seems to make us happy. And so that's kind of where we get, sometimes the bang for our buck comes back from reciprocation. Sometimes it just comes through the other person liking us more and having a stronger social tie and so on. There's a final way we kind of get this interesting effect of kind actions, and that's from a really curious way that our brain processes information, which is that our brain sees the rewards that other people get as our own rewards, right? So if I were to stick you in an fMRI scanner and have you gamble and have you win some money, there would be a part of your brain in your reward center that would light up, that would say, oh, this is great when I get money. It would also light up if you ate something really delicious, or if you saw attractive pictures of people that you wanted to hook up with, or if I give you a big bit of cocaine. That's the region that's awesome stuff is happening to me, right? But interestingly, those same regions will fire, in some cases, in monetary rewards for just as much, in cases where we watch other people get different monetary outcomes, and in particular in cases where we have donated those other monetary outcomes to other people. So it kind of seems like we see our brains are wired to see other people's rewards as our own rewards. And so it's kind of like getting a little click of cocaine every single time you do a nice thing for another person. Just kind of an accident of the way our social brain is wired up, but we really are getting more than we think. The amazing thing is, again, as in so many cases, we don't realize our brains are wired up that way. We don't realize we're going to love it as much if we give somebody $5 as if we spend it ourselves. But our brains have all these annoying features that make us not realize what's going to be awesome for us. So.